let's get
100%.
into some brand identity and strategy stuff, because I want to tap into your brain onto,
Hmm.
let's start to define. Let's talk about how we would define a digital brand strategy identity and how that may differ from, let's say, our offline presence.
Yep. So in terms of your digital strategy, and the first thing that people think when they think digital is their website, and they're not wrong to think that. A website is one of the first things. It's the first, search listing for your brand term, followed by then your social media channels. And so your digital branding and your presence is something that you can largely control, but there's also areas that you can't. So, I'm talking about negative Google reviews or other review platforms where it could be from an ex-employee, or it could be from a previous client, or someone who's had a bad interaction with your business. And so control as much as you can, but also focus on the channels that are really going to drive impact, create impact. And so, we're talking there about your website. Maybe you have some different landing pages, there's different groups. Some businesses go too far down the route of over customization. And then you go onto their website, and we have one client we're helping with at the moment. Their navigation is extremely complex and has probably 15 to 20 options per customer group. And now, whilst they offer all those things, how can you better personalize that experience? And so, when you go onto a website, financial products and lending do this very well. Are you a homeowner or investor? Are you looking for a boat loan or a car loan?
Yes.
And so you can go down the path in terms of the UX and the navigation and the customer experience to get them to self-identify who they are, what group they're in, or what product or service they're looking for. Or you can look to, create a more sophisticated navigation and layer it. But the big thing is to, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. There's a lot of, sales methodology and psychology behind how you communicate in your marketing. Some say communicate as if you're talking to a 15-year-old. Some say younger, some say older, but ballpark in that realm. I looked at a website the other day, and the first, text, above the fold was just so complex. And I had no idea what they did. At first glance, I had no idea what their product was. Something to do with technology and learning and being able to talk about your product simply, especially in a digital format, and having that consistency across every platform is like a number one thing to work towards for a business owner.
And let's delve a little bit into that consistency. Let's say, how do you ensure your brand is consistent across the digital channels? We've got all the different social media channels. We've got,
Mhm.
we've got the websites that you just spoke about.
Yep.
We've got email. Is there something that more businesses are using for greater success? And again, depending on if you're selling a product or a service as well, doesn't matter. Or how do you create that brand consistency?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd bring it back to good cadence. So obviously, if you engage a marketing professional, the first thing that we do is come in and do a brand audit, and we assess the effectiveness and the content across different channels. We then look into the audience like I touched on before, and the purpose of those channels, and really, what the content is we need to be sharing, and how do we want to use those platforms effectively. And so for a regular business owner, if maybe they've been a few years in business, they haven't updated their website content for some time, it's just creating a spreadsheet and framework to list out every platform you have. So from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter to, you might even go as far as listing out the kind of key directors or stakeholders of that organization and their LinkedIn pages, auditing Facebook pages. I know some people, they don't go back through and maybe there's some information or content on there not relevant for, their role anymore. And so doing a bit of an audit is the first place I recommend starting.
Okay.
So list out every social channel you have, audit all the platforms. We've worked with a client for a couple of years now, and they have an Instagram page that someone somewhere along the business set up, and they want to delete it, but then they no longer had access to it. And so jumping on an early, intervention is key, and creating a good cohesive system around how those platforms are set up under which email, and using a secured password manager. All of these things in terms of compliance are important if you can get them right at the beginning, because it makes it so much easier when an agency does come in to be able to get access and take charge and make changes, and to optimize those pages.
Yeah, that's a good point. And would you we were talking about the ideal client, and we gave that example of the financial advisor planning firm where there may be that retirement market, and then you've got, let's say, the 30 to 40 package market. Would you suggest you do different strategies or campaigns based on Facebook is probably an older market, TikTok and Insta are probably a younger market? Is
Yeah.
that something that we would have to consider as owners?
Yeah, certainly. So, definitely looking at the analytics and looking at, male, female percentage, looking at job titles where you have it, looking at, interest and other demographic data or geographic data that's relevant for your business. So getting as much as possible across the different platforms. But then, more broadly, looking at your engagement rate of the content. Every content piece that you put out should have a purpose. Is it to inspire someone to take action? Is it to connect and get someone to engage with something? Is it to just promote your business, which is okay to do? Self-promotion is good. What is it that you want that person to take from it? And then I think if you apply that logic into everything that you do, the business owners and the employees of your business who are maybe managing your social content will apply some more thought and thinking behind what is the intended action I want to take from this. So why am I doing it, and what's the action I want to have taken? Okay. And then you start to understand how people are engaging with these platforms, interlinking content as well, like especially on YouTube. We've just started working with an awesome buyers agency, and we're creating, videos across their podcasts. Then we're creating short videos and then even shorter videos, and then linking them all back to the main podcast to be able to, that's the main action we want people to take. We want people to consume the full content, but we're going to provide it in bite-sized chunks at different times because we know that that's how they consume it.